This headline about what Dwyane Wade said about the Heat's big three caught my attention. He said, quote unquote, the hate was because of our skin color. That was one of the quotes, but I'm going to read the bigger quote, which is, we knew that some of the hate was because of our skin color, because of being black men and deciding to control the fate of our careers. So when we had the power, when we had the moment, we took it. But some of the hate came because we were three black guys who decided and changed the way that the NBA probably would ever be because of that decision. So I would say he is somewhat right about that. To some degree, I'll say that he is right. There was a lot of people that hated them because they were black. I can't argue against that. There's some truth to it that there were some people who just didn't like them because of race. There's no doubt about that. With that being said, I think the majority of hatred for the Heat's big three came from the fact that people were upset, just in the sense that the way that they had gamed the system, they stacked the deck in their favor. And I can be honest, in life, no one likes a person that stacks the deck in their favor. Granted, it happens all the time in corporate America, in the business world, but most people don't know about that. That's behind closed doors, so that doesn't get much attention. But if you know someone has stacked the deck in their favor in an unfair way, chances are you're not going to like that person. That you're going to be envious of them, or you're going to have disdain for them, or you may have jealousy for them. So that's all natural. I think for sports fans, they were pretty upset because their teams had no chance to win. Absolutely had no chance to win, at least in their eyes, against Miami, because at the time LeBron was the best player in the league. You could say Dwyane Wade was top five player at that time when LeBron originally signed with them. I think he was coming off of a season where he averaged 30 points a game. So you have LeBron, a top five player, in D Wade. And I think Chris Bosh at that time was like a top 10 player. So you have three top 10 guys in their prime. Yeah, you're definitely gonna get a lot of hatred. It's you're stacking the deck in your favor, and in the league, perceived in other fans' eyes is that there's no point of playing the games because you're gonna have an easy march to the top. So I can see just the anger going there. And one example I like to make, comparable to the situation, I guess, is the Yankees during the late 90s when they were winning World Series. And I think they won one during the early 2000s. I could be wrong. I'm not a baseball fan. But I remember growing up, a lot of people hated the Yankees. They hated them with a passion because they felt unfair. The Yankees unfairly stacked the deck in their favor by getting the best players available, and that it was unfair to the competition for the other teams in Major League Baseball. The Yankees could just buy all this talent and just easily win it all. And keep in mind, the Yankees, I believe, was a majority white team when they were winning those World Series during that stretch. The majority of their players were white. I think they might have had some Hispanic players. They could have had a black player, but from what I saw on TV, just being a casual sports fan, seeing their highlights, it was majority white guys, and they were hated. They were probably one of the most hated teams in Major League Baseball. I knew a lot of guys who were baseball fans who despised them, and these people are white people. So I think a lot of hatred is going to come when you easily, like I said, I know it's not repetitive, but when you easily stack the deck in your favor, people are just not going to respect that. That's just how it goes. And that's what they did. I think Dwyane Wade should accept that part of it. Also, you got to understand the anger from fans of small market teams because everybody wants to at least believe their team has a chance to win a title. By LeBron leaving Cleveland, Bosh leaving Toronto. Granted, Toronto's a big market, but it's Canada, so in our eyes, it's a small market. At least American players' eyes, they're gonna treat it like that. It it gives the idea to fans throughout the league. Wow, if we're not New York, if we're not LA, if we're not Miami, if we're not just any of these big tier one markets, are desirable destinations like Miami is, then we have no chance of winning at all because our top players are just going to leave within a few years whenever their rookie contracts are over, at least the restricted part of the rookie contracts. After those deals expire, that we can't do nothing, and it's basically just a matter of time before our best players leave. So that's what I really think that was, and I get it, just the anger and the frustration that. Granted, I didn't have hatred for them at that time, only because I felt they were beatable, just to some degree that they were beatable, and I was right about that. They lost 2 out of 4 times with that team, so I wasn't upset at them. But to be fair, I know why fans hated them, because I hated the Warriors when they played this game where Kevin Durant stacked the deck in his favor by going there, and it made the league not fun from an enjoyment perspective. It's never fun when you know someone's gonna win before the game even starts. It's like watching a tall kid in middle school who's like over 6 feet dominate a bunch of middle schoolers. There's nothing exciting about that. So that's why people hate watching that. It's like, as fans, we want to see the best go up against the best. We don't want to see a prize fighter fight some random scrub. There's no fun in that. There's no fun in that. It's like, if you look at even boxing, for example, the most memorable fights were between two heavyweights, no pun intended, Ali versus Frazier. That's legendary. That, granted, it's way before my time, but it's legendary because those two guys were superstars going at it. That's what gets our attention. I think as fans of any sport, you want to see the best against the best. You don't want to see the best all teamed up and just beating just an average to below average person. Just it's not fun. It's not exciting. So I just think Wade is wrong about it to some degree. He should acknowledge the part where people were frustrated about how they unfairly stacked the deck in their favor. I think Wade should acknowledge it, but I'm not sure he has that awareness or he will. And I'm just reading another quote where he says, if you think about it, no one gives backlash to any championship that Larry Bird won, that Magic Johnson won, that Michael Jordan won. He's right about that. No one does give them backlash. And I think the biggest reason why they don't is because those three guys didn't stack the deck in their favor. Granted, you could say Larry and Magic inherited good teams, which is fair, but they didn't game the system. So that's why it's different in that regard. They didn't form their super teams. I would say the Celtics were a great team in Larry Bird, but I'm not so sure if they were a super team. Larry Bird was a superstar. Granted, this team was before my time also. I can only remember 90s basketball, but I'm assuming the game. But when I look at the 80s Celtics, Larry Bird was the MVP. I don't think Robert Parrish. I know for sure Robert Parrish was never an MVP candidate. He was never a superstar. He was a great player, perennial All-Star. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. But he was never a superstar. Kevin McHale, you could say he was a superstar for a brief minute towards probably the end of the late 80s. He had that moment where he was a superstar player, but by then Larry had declined significantly. Parrish was still an all-star, so I never viewed that team as really a super team. Granted, they had a few all-stars, but I just never viewed them that way. Granted, you could say the 86 team, you could make that case, but in general, the Celtics were not a super team, so that's why they weren't hated. Now with Magic and the Lakers, yeah, you could make the argument perhaps they were a super team, but Magic came into that team right when Kareem's prime was ending. I would say Kareem was at the tail end of his prime when Magic joined the Lakers. Granted, you could say that they were stacked, and then when they got Worthy, they had a pretty damn deep team. But I think when they had Worthy, Kareem was really declining around that time period. Just he was still a superstar player, but he wasn't in his peak form at that time. But I guess you can argue it, but still, people are never gonna chastise that team because that team wasn't stacked in a way where Magic got to pick who he played with. Granted, you can argue he did, but I guess I'll give Wade that. Maybe he has a point about that one, but not with Michael Jordan or Larry Bird, especially Michael Jordan. Those Bulls teams, I know them so well. I grew up watching those teams. Scottie Pippen did become a superstar, I would say a legit superstar probably during the 92-93 season. That's when he really stepped up and became really a great player. But those Bulls teams were never a super team, especially the first three-peat. Just it was Michael, Scotty, and a bunch of very good role players. They were very beatable, but they won, and it was mainly a testament to Mike's greatness why they won. Not because they were stacked in any way. They were just a very good team. But you had two superstars in Michael and Scotty, and you had no superstars after that. Just good role players in Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, and John Paxson. So I can't say that team was a super team. Grant, I know some people argue the second 3P team was, but again, it was Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, who were both superstars. I'm not going to say Dennis Rodman was a superstar. Was he a great defensive player? Yes. So he definitely enhanced that team for sure. He did. Tony Kukoc was a very good player. He was a good third option on that Bulls second 3P team, but he wasn't a superstar. A very good player. I would say just below a level of being an all-star, but definitely not a superstar. So I can't say that Bulls team was a super team. They had two superstars, one above average player and one above average player in Tony Kukoc, and a bunch of good role players and a great defense, especially in Rodman. Very deep team, but not a super team. So that's why people didn't hate them to a large degree. They were beatable. I know they dominated, but I felt they could have lost a few times. Just teams choked against them. I felt the Pacers in 98 choked against them. I felt the Jazz choked against them both in 97, 98. So I don't think of the Bulls ever as a super team, just a deep team, to be honest. So I think Wade should be honest when he looks at himself in the mirror and just faces up to the truth that they were mainly despised because they tried to game the system. And when you do that and people see it, you're not going to be liked. But I doubt he'll see it that way. And I would say that he should see it. He should see it that way because look at Kevin Durant. No one respects those titles he won with the Warriors again because he gamed the system. So that's another example of that. I just hope for his sake that he can come to that awareness and conclusion and just let it go. He still got to win 3 titles, and he has one title where he was the best player on the Heat, the 2006 team. But that's all I have to say about that. I know I went to a long rant, but let me know what you think.